Welcome to the Quotive Corner, a place where we take a moment, whether you're starting the day, ending it, or simply taking a break in the middle of it, to pause and think about a single idea worth reflecting on. Sometimes it's a quote that inspires. Sometimes it's a quote that challenges us. And occasionally, it's one that quietly reminds us that wisdom isn't always about saying more. Sometimes it's about saying less. Today's quote is commonly attributed to Voltaire, though the exact source is uncertain. Everything you say should be true, but not everything true should be said. Now that's a sentence that feels simple on the surface, but the longer you think about it, the more complicated it becomes. We tend to grow up hearing that honesty is the highest virtue. Tell the truth, speak the truth, be truthful, and rightly so. Truth is the foundation of trust, relationships, institutions, and even civilization itself. Without truth, everything eventually collapses into suspicion and chaos. But this quote introduces a second idea that's just as important, and maybe less commonly discussed: discretion. Because while honesty is a virtue, wisdom lies in knowing when, how, and whether to express the truth. Voltaire, if he did indeed say this, or even if the quote simply reflects his spirit, was one of the great thinkers of the Enlightenment. He lived in the 1700s, an era when Europe was wrestling with authority, religion, politics, censorship, and the power of ideas. Voltaire was famous for his wit and sharp tongue, often criticizing institutions and hypocrisy. In fact, he spent time in exile and even prison because of the things he said, so he certainly understood the power and the danger of words. But here's the subtle point of this quote. It doesn't suggest lying. It doesn't suggest hiding the truth to manipulate people. Instead, it suggests that truth alone is not enough. Truth also requires judgment. Think about how often people justify harsh words by saying, "Well, I'm just being honest," as if honesty alone automatically makes something virtuous. But honesty without wisdom can easily become cruelty. And honesty without empathy can quickly turn into arrogance. You've probably encountered someone like this. The person who says something unnecessarily blunt, then shrugs and says, "Hey, I'm just telling the truth." But the real question isn't only whether something is true. The real question is, what purpose does saying it serve? Does it help someone grow? Does it clarify something important? Does it prevent harm? Or does it simply satisfy the speaker's desire to be right? That distinction matters. And this idea connects nicely to something we talked about in a previous episode, when we looked at Samuel Johnson and the quote about knowledge and integrity needing to coexist. Johnson reminded us that knowledge without integrity is dangerous. Well, here we see a similar idea applied to speech. Truth without judgment can also be dangerous, because words have consequences. Imagine telling a difficult truth to someone who genuinely needs to hear it. That might be uncomfortable, but it can be constructive. Now imagine telling the same truth at the wrong moment, in the wrong way, or to the wrong person. Suddenly, that same truth becomes destructive. So the difference isn't the truth itself. The difference is wisdom. In philosophy, there's an old concept sometimes summarized by 3 questions before speaking. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? The first one, truth, is only step 1. And if you think about it, that idea is everywhere in real life. Diplomats know it. Leaders know it. Parents definitely know it. Anyone who has been in a long relationship learns it eventually. You don't say every true thought that passes through your mind, because some truths are incomplete. Some truths are temporary. Some truths are irrelevant. And some truths, when spoken carelessly, cause damage that serves no purpose. But here's where the quote becomes especially interesting. It's not telling us to avoid the truth. It's telling us to respect it. Truth is powerful. Powerful things require discipline. If you think about the people you admire most, whether teachers, leaders, or mentors, you'll often notice something about the way they speak. They don't rush to fill every silence. They don't comment on everything. They choose their words carefully. When they do speak, people listen. Because wisdom isn't measured by how many truths you can say. It's measured by knowing which truths matter most. And perhaps that's why this quote has endured, even if its precise origin remains uncertain. It captures something that people eventually learn through experience. Communication isn't just about accuracy, it's about judgment. You can say something that is perfectly true and still be completely wrong to say it. In today's world, especially online, this lesson might be more relevant than ever. Social media has created an environment where people feel pressure to express every thought immediately. Every opinion must be shared. Every reaction must be posted. Every truth must be announced. But wisdom often moves more slowly than that. Wisdom pauses. Wisdom reflects. Wisdom asks whether speaking will illuminate or simply inflame. Sometimes the most intelligent response is not silence because you lack something to say, but silence because you understand the weight of words. And that brings us back to the quote. Everything you say should be true, but not everything true should be said. It's not a rejection of honesty. It's an elevation of wisdom. Truth matters, but so do timing, empathy, context, and intention. In other words, truth is the foundation, but wisdom is the architecture built on top of it. And perhaps the real challenge in life isn't just learning to speak truthfully, it's learning to speak truth responsibly. Thanks for spending a few minutes here today at the Quotive Corner. If this quote made you pause for a moment and reconsider how we use our words, then it's already done its job. Because as we always say here, wisdom isn't in the quote, it's in the reflection. I'll see you next time.